When it comes to transportation for a growing family, the 3-row mid-size SUV class is a perfect choice if you're looking to avoid the minivan route. Within the industry, the Kia Telluride has garnered unanimous praise as the best in class, but what do you do if you want something that's more efficient and eco-friendly? The choices are pretty limited. On one hand, you have the new Rivian R1S. It's an all-electric SUV, but that starts around 85 grand. Then there are a handful of hybrid SUVs, including this, the 2022 Toyota Highlander Hybrid. Over the course of this review, we'll go over everything you need to know about this fuel-sipping SUV. Before we do that, do us a favor and hit those like and subscribe buttons below to get all of our latest content. You can also sell your car 100% online at CarGurus.com. You'll get the best offer from thousands of dealers. We'll have your car picked up and you'll get paid. It really couldn't be any easier. From the outside, there's not a whole lot to distinguish the hybrid from the standard Highlander that was last redesigned in 2020. Up front, you have a grille that seems partially inspired by Toyota's trucks, giving it a little more presence than the last generation. Now this is the Bronze Edition, which is based on the mid-range XLE trim and adds these attractive bronze-colored wheels, along with some interior accents here and there. I think these wheels would look great with the ruby red paint that's offered with other Highlander hybrids, but sadly, this particular Bronze Edition is only offered in black, white, and this cement gray. The profile is typical for any SUV in this class, and it's embellished with this swoopy character line here that curves over the rear fenders. It's similar to the styling flourish in the Supra and Sienna, and admittedly, I'm not a fan. To me, it looks a bit frumpy, as if you're wearing a fanny pack with a tailored suit. But hey, style is subjective. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Now around back, there's much less controversy for me. It's a tidy design that has echoes of the trapezoidal grille in the tailgate. Under the hood of the Highlander Hybrid is a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder hybrid engine that produces 243 horsepower. It's paired with a continuously variable transmission that sends power to the front wheels. This particular Highlander has Toyota's all-wheel drive E-system that adds an electric motor to the rear axle. This supplies power when needed, which is generally at initial acceleration. Speaking of acceleration, the hybrid should reach 60 miles an hour in just over 8 seconds, which is pretty close to what you'd expect from a non-hybrid SUV of this size. The regular Highlander gets there in about 7.5 seconds. Performance isn't a priority when it comes to family SUVs though. More importantly, the Highlander Hybrid focuses on fuel efficiency, and in that regard, it's unbeatable. The EPA estimates it'll return 36 mpg in combined city and highway driving. That drops to 35 mpg if you go with the all-wheel drive. By comparison, the gas-only Highlander is estimated at only 23 mpg. If you crunch the numbers with gas at $4 a gallon and 15,000 miles annually, the hybrid could save you more than $900 a year compared to the standard Highlander. That means the $1,500 premium you'd pay for the hybrid can be made up for in just over a year and a half. Of course, specs are only part of the equation, so let's see how this Highlander Hybrid drives. Initial acceleration is typically going to be all electric as long as your battery has juice. That means response is quick, but it's not going to be as, let's say, pronounced as an EV. After a few feet, the gasoline engine springs to life and it supplies more power as you keep accelerating. It's fairly seamless, as you don't really feel the transition from electric to gas, but you'll likely hear it. For the most part, the engine noise isn't all that noticeable, but it can get a little drony and rattly. Since this is a continuously variable transmission, that noise can drone on annoyingly. Outside of that, it's really not a problem. When you need to slow down, the initial stroke of the brake pedal switches to electric regeneration. That's when the motors switch to generators and uses the vehicle's inertia to slow down, and also charges the batteries. Now, pressing harder activates the traditional brakes, but like power delivery, that transition is nice and seamless. You don't feel the difference between regeneration and the physical pads. And really, you won't even know how it's operating unless you're watching the energy monitors. And that's a good thing. The ride quality is soft, which is great for overall comfort. Bumps in the road are smoothed over quite well. Thankfully, it's not overly soft, since the Highlander feels pretty settled on a curvy road. It certainly doesn't encourage you to drive with any kind of aggression, but that's not what drivers expect from a family SUV. I'd call it adequately capable in terms of handling. Adding to the hybrid's comfort is the relative silence. Road and wind noise are barely there, and if you're driving conservatively, you may not hear the engine either. When it comes to safety and driver assist, the Highlander comes well equipped. For the most part, they all function well too, but the adaptive cruise control tends to wait a little too long to get on the brakes, and that results in some rather abrupt stops. The lane keep assist also tugs at the wheel a bit too much, and can send up some false alarms when the lanes aren't really that well marked. Since this is a family SUV, the interior is the priority. So let's pull over and get into that. The Highlander Hybrid's interior deserves praise in many ways, but is merely average in others. I like how they introduced this metallic element here in the dash on the right that breaks up some of the monotony, but also affords a little more personal storage space. The center stack is dominated by this 8-inch touchscreen in the center of the dash that's right in the driver's sightline to reduce distraction. The system itself is very intuitive and easy to use, but it seems a little small for the space it's in. There is a 12.3-inch touchscreen that's available, but only in the top trims. It's easier to use and looks a little sharper, but it's prone to some annoying reflections. This smaller touchscreen, well, it's not that glossy and doesn't suffer with that, so there's some pluses and minuses to each. One area where I'm not left wanting is in regard to personal storage space. I have plenty of places to put my personal effects. You have this nice tray here for your phone, as well as another tray here for the passenger, as well as another rubberized tray here that's also good for a phone. Now, one area I'm not too crazy about is this center armrest bin that rolls back, and it's kind of blocked by this wireless charging pad here. It kind of gets in the way and makes it hard to access anything down in there, which is too bad because it's a good usable space. Honestly, I could do without this charging pad altogether because Apple CarPlay and Android Auto require a cord. If they were wireless, I'd say yes, absolutely go for it, but I'd probably move it to one of these trays here. The seats are generously padded for all-day comfort, but admittedly, I'm not that big a fan of these cloth seats. Sure, the pattern and accent stripe here add some visual interest, but to me, they look a little down market, and honestly, they don't really ever look clean to me. Toyota's Softex leather substitute is also not very convincing. To me, it looks more like a cheap vinyl. Another point of contention for me is the driver's door armrest. It's just a little too far away for me to use. I feel like I have to lean awkwardly to use it. It's actually something that I've experienced in the Ford Explorer as well. It's just built for bigger people, I think. Here in the second row, there's plenty of space for me. I'm 5'10", sitting behind the driver's seat that's set for me. I really don't need any more headroom or legroom. Plus, these seats slide forward and also recline. Materials quality isn't as good as the front, but that's pretty typical for a family SUV, at least for durability concerns. You do have some nice features like a sunshade here to keep your young ones out of the sun, and also some large cup holders here, as well as some USB chargers and your own separate climate controls. Of course, this is a 3-row SUV, and access to that third row is fairly easy. With these captain's chairs, there's a good pass-through here to squeeze past, but these seats also slide forward and fold. Obviously, these third-row seats aren't nearly as accommodating as the first or second rows. And I'm bumping into the headliner here, and I'm kind of cramped in. And there's almost no thigh support to speak of. I mean, this seat cushion here is mounted really low to the floor, leaving my knees almost up in my chest. But let's face facts. These seats are meant for smaller passengers, kids, possibly on a morning school commute, and occasional use at that. So it's not something you can really complain too much back here. One thing I'm not too crazy about is a lot of hard plastics that you're bumping your elbows into. But also, that's not all that uncommon for this class. What might be uncommon, though, is the storage capacity. So let's check that out. Behind the third row of seats, you have 16 cubic feet of cargo space, which is actually small for the midsize SUV class. But Folding the seats forward is pretty easy with just this little lever here. And it's easy to get them back up with this handy strap as well. Now, folding those seats flat gets you just over 48 cubic feet of space, and folding the second row gets you over 84 cubic feet of space. When it comes to towing, the Highlander Hybrid maxes out at 3,500 pounds. The Highlander Hybrid doesn't drive all that differently from the standard Highlander. With a price of just over $40,000 for the base LE trim, climbing to over $50,000 for the top Platinum trim, it doesn't cost that much more than the standard Highlander either. Adding all-wheel drive for about $1,100 kicks the as-tested price to $47,515. As I said earlier, the pricing makes perfect sense to step up to the Highlander Hybrid when you consider the savings in fuel costs over the years. As far as hybrid SUVs, there aren't a lot of alternatives. The Ford Explorer Hybrid starts well past $50,000 because it's only offered in the top trims. That already puts it at a disadvantage, and the unimpressive 25 mile per gallon estimate and similarly small cargo capacity puts it in the hybrid in name only place in my book. There's also the Kia Sorento Hybrid that starts around $35,000 and maybe not so great for growing families. It's quite a bit smaller, but it returns an impressive 35 miles per gallon. For large families, the Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid is worth checking out, especially if you're not opposed to minivans. It's estimated to return a decent 30 miles per gallon. All things considered, the Toyota Highlander is the best pick among these hybrids. While there's room for improvement here and there, it is fundamentally a praiseworthy SUV with no direct rivals. If you need this kind of passenger and cargo space and want to maximize fuel efficiency, you should start your search here. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe below. And we'll see you next time.